reading from the book of Exodus, the Old Testament. It's a really important story of Israel in the wilderness. And the backstory is that the Israelites had been slaves in Egypt for like 400 years. God saw their suffering, raised up a leader in Moses with his brother Aaron to go against Pharaoh and lead God's people from slavery to freedom in the promised land. And at this point in the story, where are the Israelites? They're in the wilderness, right? Like they're on the journey, but they're in the wilderness where they're going to be for a while. And they've been freed from slavery, but now they're wandering. And so, like, how would you feel in that situation, right? Relief that you're not under the thumb of your oppressor, but also it's unfamiliar, it's uncertain. They're scared. And this is what we hear. If only we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by pots of meat and ate our fill of bread. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill the whole assembly with hunger. So what's their complaint? Okay, yeah, we were under slavery, but we had food to eat. That might have been a little bit of selective memory, not that humans are ever prone to that. Their words and their actions, they're powered by fear and scarcity. And candidly, it's understandable. If I'm honest with myself, in the wilderness like that, I probably would have been grumbling. I probably would have let my fear and uncertainty show in not very flattering ways. But God's response is abundance and provision. Each day, God rains down bread from heaven, manna from heaven. In the story, when they look at the flakes and they say, "What is this?" That's actually what manna means. What is this? But each day, God rains down manna, bread from heaven, and each evening provides quail so they have protein to nourish their bodies. Every day, God provides what they need to eat to fullness. Then we turn to our reading from the Gospel of Luke, a scene that's likely familiar from the events of Holy Week. And we hear how Jesus was betraying Jesus, how Judas was betraying Jesus in exchange for money. And how does Jesus respond? Does he know this? And he's like, "Forget it, Judas. You can no longer be at the table." No. Jesus still invites him to the table where they celebrate the Passover, where they have this meal of remembering how God set the Israelites free from slavery. They remember God's provision and abundance and freedom. So whatever Judas's motivations, Jesus responds to his selfishness and betrayal by inviting him to stay at the table with an abundance of grace. This is how God is, right? These two stories, I think they capture the reality of our very humanness, right? About how we are under stress and under worry and under like all of these things. It's just like we see ourselves in these stories, even though sometimes we don't want to. But what we also see is this is how God is. Even our moments of desperation, our moments of deep betrayal, even when we're operating from fear or uncertainty or scarcity, God meets us with provision and abundance and grace, inviting us to see and imagine the world and experience the world through that abundance. We all have experiences spoken and unspoken messages about money and about what we have that shape our attitudes, whether those are, whether we have more of a scarcity or abundance mindset, and also about practices around how we use our money and around giving and generosity. And all of these together shape our money stories. They shape our money stories as individuals, and we too have a money story as a church. Christ Lutheran Church has a money story that's really worth paying attention to as we are doing life and ministry together. Excuse me. As people of faith, as people who claim Jesus as Lord, who desire to follow in the way of Jesus, part of our spiritual journey is allowing God's way of provision and abundance to also shape our money story. So for these 4 Sundays beginning today, that's the theme that we're focusing on. We're focusing on this theme of our money story. We will be exploring the spiritual dimensions of our relationship with money and giving and generosity as we also prepare to make some commitments for how we will each financially support the ministry of Christ Lutheran Church in 2026. And so the theme for this first week, looking at our money story, is this theme of remember. Right? This is why I told you the story about my grandparents. How much was the stamp? What coins did he pick up and put down? Right? And so the theme is remember. And so we're going to begin doing our own work, looking back at what have been the spoken and unspoken money stories in our lives, and what has been the impact of those stories in our lives, in our relationships, and in the world. So for those of you worshiping in the sanctuary, if you take your bulletin, you can flip it over. Here's a summary of the series. And then if you open the back page, don't get overwhelmed by that it's 2 pages, because one's a chart, it's easy. Okay, and for those of you worshiping on home, this material was included in the flock notes that went on Thursday, and I'll be sending it again on Tuesday for everyone. So if you look at this, I invite you to take some time this week, look at these exercises, reflect on these questions that are designed to help you remember and notice your own money story. And as we do this, it's important that we enter into this with a posture of curiosity and non-judgment, okay? Meaning that as we look at our stories and we reflect on these questions, we use these exercises to notice, to become aware, to learn, and not to judge ourselves as good or bad or to shame ourselves, okay? This is what spiritual work looks like, is we look at facets of our lives with curiosity and non-judgment, and we're noticing and we're inviting God to move and to bring things to our awareness so they can be shaped by God, and our life in God can be shaped. So as you look at these exercises in the first section, we're really looking at mindset with regards to money and giving and generosity. And then the other questions are designed, like I said, to really bring to consciousness the stories and experiences that have shaped your attitudes, your practices about money, and also to look at, who are the people that have influenced you in both helpful and unhelpful ways with regard to money. In all of it, we come back to and remember the truth of who God is and how God is with us. We remember that in the face of our joyful giving, in the face of our feelings of scarcity and holding tight, in the face of our desperation, uncertainty, and in the face of our betrayal, as well as our love and joy and connection, God responds with provision and abundance. God responds to all of our lives, meeting us with grace and love and inviting us into the abundance of God's way. Amen. I invite you to stand for our hymn of the day. Let's join together confessing our faith using the words